it's a wonderful opportunity to evaluate a speaker like Daryle Hamel. There's a sport called ultimate fighting, also known as UFC. There was a big UFC fight this past Saturday. Now, the fighters leading up to the main event are called the undercard. And the main event is the one that everyone's looking forward to, and that's the one that's publicized. The main event is like giving a keynote speech. And tonight, that's what Daryle was doing. He was practicing a keynote speech. So, if I was going to evaluate the most publicized fighter of the main event this past Saturday, who's Conor McGregor, am I going to sit up here and tell him, oh, you're really good at jabs, you got an amazing right hook? No, he's a professional ultimate fighter. So while I can sit up here and start with, Daryle, you had great eye contact, you had great gestures, you were comfortable, you used the space well. I could go through all of that, but we already know that. Daryle is the main event. He's the keynote speaker. He's already great at all of those things. He's given over 40 speeches. So I want to dig into more of what I think could help him get a knockout in the first round instead of maybe in the second round. So right off the bat, what makes a keynote a keynote? It's supposed to be inspirational. Daryle had loads of confidence. He always does, but that also comes from experience. Lots of confidence. He was very genuine. He was very conversational. He spoke from the heart. And my question to you is, were you inspired? Yes. I think everyone in here was inspired. So Daryle, you definitely met that requirement of a keynote. I asked you if you wanted me to look for anything, and we talked about your intro and your close. And for those of you who weren't part of Toastmasters when we used to meet in this really dusty, musty church across town, one of the first evaluations I ever saw that really impacted me was by Daryle. And he said to the person he was evaluating, you need to think of a speech like this. In your intro, you punch him in the face. During the speech, you rub him or pat him on the back. And then at the end, before you close, you kick him in the shin so they don't forget you. So as I'm going through your speech, I'm wondering, did you do that? So let's talk about the intro. You started with 3 questions. Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? You had a pause there. It was a little too long for me. I almost went.
I forgot. Honestly, I forgot. I was like, how did I forget that?
Did I live? Did I love? And then maybe 1, 2, 3. Did I matter? Okay, so you did forget. I noticed.
I saw the picture and I was like, right, did I matter?
Okay. So maybe work on rehearsing that. I thought the close was also good. Whenever you end with questions, and I think seasoned Toastmasters know this, it's tricky because questions are good because you're engaging the audience, but sometimes it can be anticlimactic. So that kind of happened to you because you had this powerful close and everyone clapped, and then you said, and now I'm going to do some questions, and the questions were good, but I wonder, is that the best way? So I'm going to circle back to the close at my close. Organization. We comment on organization sometimes in evaluations like it's some throwaway thing, but it's not. It's one of the most important things about writing and speaking, and you did an excellent job of this. You had a very clear system. For each of your 6 lessons you wanted to teach us, you gave us the lesson, then you gave us a narrative or a story. Sometimes it was personal, sometimes it was more like towards the audience, and then the third thing you did was specifically related to Toastmasters. Lesson, relatable moment, Toastmasters. Lesson, relatable moment, Toastmasters. And you were methodical about that, and I appreciated that, and it made the speech easy to follow. And something I noticed is the preparation and organization of the whole speech mirrored your PowerPoint. You did the exact same thing with the PowerPoint. Did anyone notice that? Every time he gave the lesson, he had the slide, black and white, simple message. And then he had either nothing necessarily or some photos that were fun to look at, so some visuals interspersed. And then he had a slide about Toastmasters, giving us specific examples about how to incorporate it into our lives and into Toastmasters. So that was textbook perfect, what a seasoned Toastmaster should be doing. Room for improvement. For me, your most powerful slide was the tombstone slide, when you talked about the dash. And so I thought, what if that was somehow worked into your title? Like, what does your dash mean? Or something about maybe a mad dash, because you talked about like who lives like going through the motions instead of intentional, which is part of your whole message. And I thought something with dash in the beginning to make the audience go, huh? And then you kind of solve their problem. One last thing, you did have great visuals and analogies. I think we all loved the analogy of the wizard behind the curtain sweating his butt off. But actually, my favorite analogy that you used had to do with being an athlete and what someone who says, I'm going to be an athlete, how they would apply that to each of the 6 lessons. So something I thought that you could maybe play with, just humor me, is maybe find out who in the audience does not consider themselves to be an athlete. And then maybe walk them through each of the 6 steps, like picture yourself intending to run a 5K. What does it mean to design your schedule that way? How do you self-evaluate? Visualize yourself running the race. Visualize yourself running the race and like crapping out at mile 2, and how do you endure that, your lesson 5? And then being able to express and communicate that to those around you so you actually complete it and so you won't quit. So I love the idea of athleticism applied to your message. Altogether, I think if you take at least a few of these suggestions into your next version of this speech, I think it will definitely be a knockout in round 1. Congratulations. Thank you.